Yeah, go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dublin Racing Festival Fat Jockey podcast. You will notice I'm with Jono, as per usual. Hi, Jono. And
Hello.
we have a new, improved Paul with us today, who is also Bay of Freedom on the forum. Hello, Paul.
Hello, everyone.
Now, Spectre can't make it tonight, unfortunately. He's still on the live stream building up the case for Galahad Quest. We tried to get him on, but he's still in a soliloquy, and I don't think we'll see him until next week. So best of luck with that, though, Paul. I hope everyone enjoyed that. So, Paul, taking over, big shoes to fill. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you're not wrong there. Certainly big shoes to fill. So yeah, you're right. Bay of Freedom. Bay of Freedom was my first horse with Peter Fahey. Bought him in 2013, I think, and did well for us. Won 4 races. So I kept that as my name. Now have 2 horses with Peter. Freedom to Dream, who's running tomorrow, and then Surprise Package, who's running on Sunday. So happy to talk about those 2, as well as everyone else who's going to win. So happy to do all of that.
Excellent. So obviously a lot of races to go through. We're going to go through race by race. We'll probably break it down, have a bit of a break and split the podcast into 2, do day 1 and day 2. And yeah, we're ready to crack on, guys?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sounds good.
Super. Okay, so first race of the weekend, the Nathaniel Racing Partners 50k for stable staff, 2 miles 6 novice hurdle. It's only really worth going back to 2018 when this race changed to being 2 miles 6 furlongs. It's a really interesting race in the calendar because it's the first, well, not the first time, but we see sort of good quality horses, some intermediate horses going up in trip, some that we think will be better at 3 miles, sort of not quite at 3 miles yet, and it's an interesting distance. There's not a lot of races at this distance. In terms of winners of this race, it's been a mixed bag really in terms of winners. A lot of them have hit the bar. So last year, Gaillard de Mainil was second in the Ballymore. We've also had Latest Exhibition, Commander of Fleet, who both were second in the Albert Bartlett, and Tower Bridge was 5th in an Albert Bartlett as well, having won this race. Last year, Vanillier, well beaten in the race, finished 10th, and then popped up and won the Albert Bartlett. Looking through, it doesn't look like a race though that's littered with similar stories, or even ones that have gone sort of well in handicaps. So I suppose going forward, it might not be the most important race of the weekend for a lot of clues going forward, bar the winner. So who is the winner? One that I don't think it will be is Bron. He's an unbeaten horse for Willie. He was sort of a stable number. Well, he is the stable number 1 now with What Do You Want coming out. I haven't seen. Have either of you 2 seen the reason he isn't running?
No.
I think he was just lame, I think.
Okay. So, I mean, Bron, I tipped him myself at 100 to 1 for the Supreme before he ran, but that he was so workmanlike. Thought he made hard work of beating Killer Mode, who's been 8 lengths behind Govan for Willie. That horse has been walloped by Sir Gerhard before, and Hiayu, I don't know how to pronounce that one properly, but he's been beaten 11 lengths by Eric Bloodex earlier in the season, so sort of collateral form and how hard work he made of it. He's not really a horse I'm interested in this weekend. I think the step up in trip will definitely help him. He looks like he needs it, but I think he's fairly easy to pass over this weekend, just because the price he is doesn't really compensate for how much improvement he needs. I am a fan though of Eric Bloodax, but this I think he'll need the 3 miles. I think 2 miles 6 is obviously going to be better for him, but I think it's 3 miles that will see him at his best. So I can't be on the podcast and not mention Ginto. So using him as a form line, he's obviously beaten Eric Bloodax really easily, 11 lengths. And then in the Lawlers, which is a better race than that, he's over the same trip, he's beaten Hollow Games, who was 4 lengths behind Ginto. So I'm a little bit wary that maybe Eric, have I said that right? Hang on. What did I say then? Did that make sense?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Overall. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, like just on the line through using Ginto as the line, sort of, I would have Hall of Games ahead of what Eric Bloodaxe has done. And I think the step up in trip will help Hall of Games just as much as it will Eric Bloodaxe as well. So I'm just a little bit wary that maybe that form line is a little bit behind Eric Bloodaxe form line, which obviously does lead us into another horse that was in that race, Paul, that you know quite well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Freedom to Dream, I guess you're talking about, Kev. Yeah, so it's interesting. One thing, because I wrote a blog today, and one thing we talked about before was actually, it came back into the yard, Freedom to Dream did, with bad blood count. So we actually put him on medication. So Peter was really disappointed with him, actually, at Limerick, the fact that he didn't beat Eric Bloodaxe. So I don't know what that means for tomorrow, but it's, we think the shorter distance will certainly, I think, help us, certainly compared to Eric Bloodaxe, like you say. But we also think the horse is really well. He looks great. The ground should be fine. It's interesting, Eddie O'Leary said tonight that they wanted to see soft in the description for Eric Bloodaxe before he would be allowed to take part. It's been raining in Dublin today, so I think he may get his wish. But if not, it would be interesting if he actually did take him out. So we'll see how that plays out. But now I'm hopeful for Freedom to Dream. I don't think it's a 33-1 shot. Let's put it like that. And we've already scared one of Willie's off, so we're down to 7. And prize money for the first 6. So guess where we're going to finish. But we'll see. We'll see. But I agree with you regarding Bron. I don't see the farm line. To take a killer mode form line, all the lines you say, the collateral form with Eric Bloodaxe. Don't see how he actually finishes in front of us, to be quite honest. Manila Kakuna, I don't know what you think of that. I have similar sort of thoughts. I would disappointed if we can't beat him, to be quite honest. But the 2 Elliott ones, I think, are certainly very interesting in this race. To me, Manila Kakuna, could be the one to actually upset Hollow Games. Grand Jury, though, I don't know. It didn't seem to me like he needed 2 mile 6 coming out of his last race. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out as well. Yeah,
because Henry said that he thinks he does, and I think a lot of people on the forum have sort of jumped on that as well. And I think I probably all agree we're maybe seeing something different than he said.
Yeah, I would have dropped it. I actually wanted to see him back over 2. I thought his last run was promising, travelled really well. And I assumed they would maybe drop him back to 2 for the Sunday race, actually. So I was pretty surprised. Well, I was surprised slightly they went for this race, and then they've name-checked the Albert Bartlett. Obviously, this race is very much an Albert Bartlett trial, generally. I think it's a stronger Bartlett trial than Ballymore, but I think Grand Jury's probably doing what a lot of people didn't think he would be doing in terms of targets.
Yeah, I think on Manila Kakuna, the race he won at Navan's been won by Glenn Lowe, blow by blow, run wild Fred, and then last year Bob Ollinger had won it. This year Journey with Me was in the race and pulled out on the day, but to me Manila Kakuna has just got the profile of, like, if you were going to split those horses into categories, Bob Ollinger was a massive outlier, and maybe Journey with Me would have been as well, but I think Manila Kakuna is more likely to end up in a handicap if he's going to have any business at Cheltenham. He's been beaten by Hammond Dawson, who was a bumper horse that I remember was hyped up and has just not been very good. And I just, that's always stuck with me. But a horse that's been beaten by that horse isn't going to be winning a Grade 1 for me at any stage. So I'm not really interested in Manila Kakuna. The first time I saw Manila Crooner and Manila Kakuna in the Antipos list, I thought there'd been sort of just an odds checker error. But Manila Crooner is quite credible. Split Kilcrut and Journey with Me in their sort of match over Christmas. With Journey with Me skipping the race and having a target at the Ballymore. I don't know. I think that race was a little bit flatter than I thought for Manila Crooner. He was quite slow at some of his hurdles. Sort of round the turn, he looked to have lost his chance, and then he has stayed on sort of quite well. So the extra 2 furlongs will help him. I can definitely see why I think he's been backed into second favourite now. I can see that. For me, if I had to, it's not. I really, really want Hollow Games to win. I want that Jinto form franking, and I want that to be the best form line. And I'm trying not to let what I want get in the way of what I think is most likely to happen. But I do think that is the strongest form line. I think I can see why people would like to be against Hollow Games with either Grand Jury or Manila Crooner. But I think my preference is for Hollow Games, just because, again, that I'm just hoping that form is really strong. But again, I think if Journey with Me was in this still, I think he would have been my selection, which is probably why Manila Crooner is just looming in the back of my mind that he could win this race, and that looks strong as well. I suppose that's where I'm at. I don't know about you two.
I think one thing to watch out for in this race is being 2 miles 6 furlong on heavily watered ground with possibility of a little bit of rain coming in overnight again, and certainly during the day tomorrow. It's pretty stamina sapping when it happens like that. It's false, not false ground per se, but it is the heavily watered ground. It really does take it out of the horses. So we may see them finishing more tired than we expect them to, and make it more of a stamina test than people might. So, if there's any doubts about stamina, I'd be sort of putting a question mark against some of these horses. So I think to that extent, I think Hollow Games, I'd have less doubt about its stamina. I think I'd less doubt about the ground. And I think on balance, maybe a little bit the same perhaps with Manila Crooner. Certainly wouldn't be, I think, like Jono says, Grand Jury, while they struggled to win this race at Punchestown over 2 miles, he actually beat a couple of horses that come out and won fairly well since. So, you could see him going either way. So he may not be best. Eric Bloodaxe, he may be suited as well, to be quite honest. So it's going to be interesting to see how they finish. From our point of view, what we're going to do is we're going to let them battle out up front, and we'll pick them off one by one, which is what we did in the Scalding race, and we'll see how many we can pass before we finish. So.
Let's have a look. What about you, Johnny? What are your give us the 1, 2, 3?
Easy. I have to say that it's not just because you're on, Paul. I was surprised to see the price on Freedom's Dream. I'm not going to say I think he's the winner at all. Unfortunately, but I could definitely see him running much better than the 33 to 1 outsider. Absolutely.
You can get 18 to 1 4 places.
Really?
At the moment.
Yeah. That does appeal, actually. I kind of feel like Hollow Games they've been a bit lukewarm on him since the Lawlers, actually. I don't know. I thought going into this race they'd be pretty bullish, but maybe it's just me reading into things a bit differently. But listening to just David Russell's blog, Gordon Elliott a bit. I think they know they've got a good chance. They've obviously got the favourite, but I thought there might just been a bit more confidence behind him. He would be the one I would personally like to see win. Like I said, I'd be well against Grand Jury. The trip is a question mark for me, and I think the ground. I think better ground would be where you could maybe see him getting improvement. And he's, like Paul said, he's not going to get that tomorrow. So I'd probably say it's Manila Crooner. I think he's a solid place prospect. And Eric Bloodaxe, I reckon could. I think he should be a little bit closer to the head of the market, actually. I know he was well put in his place by Jinto, but as we know,
who wouldn't be there?
Jinto is a machine. So
Jinto wins all.
And we obviously know that Limerick race is rock solid for Albert Bartlett runners. So you never know, Paul. Freedom to Dream. He could. Is the plan to go to the Albert Bartlett with a good run? Have you made kind of plans beyond tomorrow?
We we certainly put him in there with an option to go. So if he runs well tomorrow, we'd certainly take that in. I also think Peter's talking about him for the Martin Pipe as well, interestingly. So we'll see how that plays out. So you think if he runs well tomorrow, we'll get a marking high 130s, which will get him into that race comfortably.
Oh, perfect.
So, to be honest, I've not really got a firm opinion. I think it's quite an open renewal. I've got nothing massively strong. It's probably a race I'm just going to watch, actually. I've got a few bets.
What a strong start for the podcast. No bet. 15 minutes in, no bet.
On the fence.
I'm only allowed to bet one horse. So.
Freedom to Dream, 4 places.
Freedom to Dream, 4 places, 18-1. That's the tip. Okay, bro. Right, we'll try and keep it to 15 minutes a race, or we'll be here all night. So, on to the second race of the weekend. Massive Spring Juvenile Hurdle. Winners of this race, like Arcona, Footpad, Sir Eric, Quilixios. It's a race to take note of. I know, obviously, not all of them went on to win the Triumph or anything, but cracking horses. Aspire Tower fell while leading at the last in this before. Mr. Adjudicator beat Far Class in this race in 2018. They finished reverse places, but 1-2 in the Triumph. Espordelum was beaten in this race, in that race too, and obviously he went on to win the Champion Hurdle. So cracking race. Obviously one to take note of. I think this year's race looks an excellent renewal. You've got the early season hot pot, Fildor heading the market. On paper, his main danger was beaten by a stablemate that Gordon had previously said wasn't as good as Fildor. However, we know things aren't that straightforward. So Vauban in that race so he's second favourite tomorrow. I think he's drifted a little bit from when the opening prices came out. Watching that race back when he raced against Pied Piper, he did make a mess of he was off the bridle first, made a mess of the last flight, and he's not gone down far by when beaten by Pied Piper. And he looked like he had the engine to run him down, and plenty of people think that he would have reversed that form if they clashed again. Since then, Pied Piper's obviously gone on to win on the bridle at Cheltenham and gone favourite for the race. So you could say, is the obvious staring us in the face? Is if Vauban is up to that level, is that just much better and was good and not quite right about which one was the better at home? I know there have been some sort of conflicting statements come from him about who was sort of working the best or who was the best of the two. And I think obviously we have last year as a bit of an example where he was quite. He went out of his way to say that Zanahir was a better horse than Quilixios last year. And obviously Quilixios then went on to win the Triumph. But I suppose roll that on another 12 months and I think most people would now agree that he was probably got that right and Zanahir is the better horse of the two. And that sort of often can be the case when they hype a horse and get that wrong, which sort of it does make me keen on Fildor, because I don't know, I certainly wouldn't be writing him off. I think it's really interesting that they've flip-flopped as favourites for the Triumph. But in terms of tomorrow's race, I'm not surprised to see Fildor favourite. I think his the way he's sort of gone about everything so far, there's an element of sort of unavoidable recency bias because we haven't seen Fildor since he beat Lunar Display easily at Christmas on the 26th. I remember at the time being visually impressed with him, really professional, and compared to like Vauban, he's just, compared to what you've seen on the track between those two so far, it's sort of chalk and cheese between how professional they are. Just having a look now, what have I missed there? So the 15 length distance that Vauban and Pied Piper put between themselves and HMS Seahorse means that the tide turns, he beat the same horse 2.75 lengths. That for me isn't, I'm just happy to not be interested in him. He was lame on the morning of the 27th in the same race that Ikare Allen was in. This is the tide turns, but I can't find what price he was for that. But I know that Ikare Allen was a 6-4 shot in the morning, and he won at 13-8. So I can't imagine that the Tide Turns was a massively sort of significant player on the day. I might be getting that wrong, but the way I'm reading that is sort of the market has the main three spot on here, really. I know there's been a bit of blue for Ikari Allen today. He's into 5-1. He's got the collateral form beating, or he's got collateral form with Ben Seagal. He's beaten Prairie Dam to further than him, although Dr. Brown Bear does muddy that a little bit if you were being literal. But Dr. Brown Bear's done one of those that's then been beaten even further by Phil Dorr. So even if that sort of was relevant or you took it literally, he's still way behind the front of the market. So I think the market has got them right in the pecking order. Obviously, if it was that simple, that'd be amazing. But juveniles are improving at different rates all the time, aren't they? So, and then just the ones at the massive prices, I just didn't have any interest in at all. The Willie Mullins one that I'm not going to try and pronounce the name of is 100-1. So, I mean, if people wanted to, I mean, you don't often get 100-1 about a Willie Mullins horse. That's not the stupidest bet in the world. The others,
unless it's Galopin de Champ.
Unless it's Galopin de Champ, yeah. The one that's come in for a lot of money. I mean, if we'd have done the podcast yesterday or day before that, Vidali was 40-1 when first came in. That did sort of tweak my interest a little bit. I think the way I'd probably play that now that she's 20-1 is have a look at the non-run no bet for the Triumph rather than back her for tomorrow, and also non-run no bet for the Mares Novice Hurdle, just with connections there. You've got Rachel Blackmore on for a Kenny Alexander mare, probably similar types before. We'll end up running in good races, probably not winning and then having the experience next year, so one for the notebook. But for me, I think I would have to, I'm not really invested in, I've not got anything on Phil Dorr at all for the Triumph, and I think he's going to win tomorrow and go back to favourite, and I don't want that to have been the case, but that is what I think. I think he's going to be the best tomorrow. I'm hoping it's close and that maybe the others can improve past him, but I think there's a little bit of, I was hoping he'd be a bit more forgotten in the market, and maybe Vauban, because Vauban was backed into favourite, wasn't he? And now they've sort of flip-flopped again, but I think that's right. And if I had to have one bet in the race, it would either be a Car Allen each way, just because I think he is clear third favourite, or more likely I would just back Phil Dorr win. I think that's where I'm at the moment with this race. What about you, Jono?
I think the market's right. Yeah, I think there was a large assumption that Phil Dorr would skip this race, which is why I think Vauban was such a kind of heavy favourite for the kind of weeks and days leading up, and then obviously you had Pied Piper do what he did last weekend. I definitely think that race, there's a massive assumption now that Vauban is going to kind of kick on and show the same kind of improvement that Pied Piper did. Now connections are bullish. They think he has improved, and they were very keen on him at the start of the season. I remember them saying, I think Joe Chambers said they hadn't been as excited with a flat recruit since Saudier. So there's a lot of talk about him, and obviously he went off favourite in that Pied Piper race. But yeah, I mean, Phil Dorr has done nothing wrong. Has had countless winners coming from his races. Has been backed up, I think, 3 winners out of his first run. You had the likes of Sea Sessions, 6 Feet Apart. They've come over to the UK and won races. So it's very hard to knock Phil Dorr. He's kind of won in several different ways. He's won off the bridle. He's been in a battle. So absolutely, I'd have Phil Dorr favourite. I'm excited by Vauban. You can't not be. I mean, I think connections seem quite lukewarm with Ikar Allen. I was actually quite impressed over Christmas. Doesn't seem to be much talk about him. Now, you could read that in 2 ways. I would kind of be reading that as because they're so confident about the kind of first string. But yeah, I think he did everything that was expected over Christmas, and he was kind of a lively outsider for the Triumph, I think. But he's kind of not being too considered in this race. I know he's third favourite, but not much talk about him. But yeah, the fact that Pied Piper, he didn't really do any work apparently before that run over Christmas. Improved massively. Hadn't been away before that run at the track. So to just assume that Vauban is going to continue that line of improvement is a bit risky when he's up against a serious horse who, let's face it, Elliot, like you say, is still kind of saying that he is the number one juvenile in the yard. So I'm similar to you, actually. I don't have anything on Fildor. I've got Vauban as a good winner, but I would say Fildor is definitely the most likely winner. I think you can get 6-1 on the kind of the specials, win tomorrow and win at the festival. Probably about what you would get if you did the two bets manually, I think. But yeah, I think it has to be with the Elliott runner. I mean, I guess the only thing is Fildor hasn't really been up against the Mullins horses yet. And I always just think he's clearly a good horse, but I mean, he's beaten, is it Luna Display a couple of times, Luna Power a couple of times. Yeah, there's winners coming out to those races, but this is, I think, the first time he's really going to be tested by Mullins. That's obviously always the biggest clash.
Yeah. Do you think Mullins is that big on his juvenile? There's not really many of them. They're always well talked up, but
I don't think it's something he concentrates on as such. But he's still got a fairly decent record, and he still picks up plenty of wins. I mean, I don't know in this race what his record is actually.
He'd about Mr. Adjudicator, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
What do you think about any thoughts on that, Paul?
Yeah, I'm along the same lines as you guys. I think Vauban probably would have won if he'd jumped the last against Pied Piper. I think he's entitled to improve. But I also take what Jono just said, that Elliott was amazed, I think, that Pied Piper had won that race, not least because it was on heavy ground, which when it's breeding, to my mind, screams sort of yielding to soft at worst. So it wasn't surprising it came out and won at Cheltenham on good ground, but his improvement was sort of off the charts. So I think you're right, it would be a big mistake to think Vauban's going to make the same improvement just because Pied Piper did. It doesn't seem to be any correlation there whatsoever. And then for Elliott to come out and say Fildor's, in his view, still number one compared to, I'm not sure I totally buy that, but I don't think we need to buy it. I still think Fildor could win this. So that's the way I'm going on this one.
Okay, so second race, are you unanimous back the favourite?
Yep.
You get value on this podcast.
There's more. There's better to come.
We'll see.
Yeah, exactly.
What have we got next? Then we've got the Irish Arkle, fantastic, Jono.
Yeah, so this is which obviously would have been a fairly hollow win. Everyone assumed before the news he had his setback for the season. Massive implications for the Arkle this race. Hasn't always, in terms of Cheltenham, gone on to be the winner. Obviously, Nicky Henderson usually gets in the way of Mullins quite often in the Arkle, but it has thrown up obviously Underso, Duvan, Footpad. Energamine was the winner last year. Obviously, injury ruled him out, but Willie Mullins has a clear Arkle kind of steps throughout the season. This is his Arkle trial as the last prep for his runners, and he's got three, I think, quite closely matched actually horses in the race. I think it's no surprise to see Townend on Blue Lord. He's had the 2 runs. The other 2 are 5-year-olds. I think it would have been a big shock if he hadn't have been on Blue Lord. I can see the bet is a Blue Lord was quite a clear favourite actually, but Riviere to Tell is starting to get fairly close in the betting. You kind of got 7-4, Riviere to Tell 15-8. In terms of Blue Lord, like I said, I think he's probably the rightful favourite just about. He had solid form last year over hurdles. Basically kept finding 1-2 good, like Bob Ollinger. Appreciate It. Echoes in Rain, that wonder mare. I was a little bit. I thought the last run, the kind of the hype about him was a little bit unjustified. Did nothing wrong, but it's a 3-runner race. I think they only jumped 5 fences. You had Lifetime Ambition, who is not a 2-miler, and who's the other horse? So yeah, Lifetime Ambition, trainer obviously in absolutely horrendous form. And who else did you have? Third, Dancing on My Own. Again, Henry de Bromhead, not in the best of form at that time either. And that kind of made his price plummet a bit, really. And I didn't quite get it. Again, did nothing wrong, jumps well. I was more impressed on his chase debut, definitely. And I think the fact that he's had that second run, he hasn't really gone too far ahead of the others. St. Sam has surprised me. It's a very small horse. I didn't think they'd go chasing with him. I think Patrick Mullins said similar in the week, but did say that in November he kind of took their eye. But he didn't say who else was doing the schooling, but St. Sam was the one that they took out of it. Jumped well last time, and actually he's posted, I think, the highest RPR 152 on chase debut in the field, just taking everyone's first runs, which kind of shows that he's not just a back number. I know he's the third kind of Mullins in the race. Rachel Blackmore rides. I'm dubious about how far he can go over fences, but it's hard to argue with the figure he put up. Holton Couleur, really liked his debut. I actually would probably favour him out of the 3 runners. He posted a 148 on debut at the track, course and distance. I think a lot of these horses seem to be running into kind of JP handicap plot horses, Gentleman to Me, the Devil's Coachman. So it's hard to weigh up too much with. I think all 3 runners, you got 2 5-year-olds that have had 1 run, and you've got Blue Lord, the 2 runs, but that second run is pretty dubious to me. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of a flip-flop. Yeah, I'm not sure the market. I think the market is correct in the way they've got them ordered, but I think come the end of the race, that could be completely flipped. I can't have Bustleton, maybe doing a bit of disservice, but he's just not on my mind for this race. Embittered he's just an interesting one, actually, I think, with the Grand Annual in mind. He's been running in graded races the last twice. He's actually now rated only 141. He was 9-2 favourite in the Grand Annual last season, off £6 higher, and he fell when he was going quite well, but I think it was about midway through the race. He's had 2 wins and 2 seconds early on in the season, fairly average races, but then they've chucked him into, I think, grade 2, grade 3, and now grade 1. I would guess that's now trying to keep his mark. So he's going to be going into the festival, you would assume, around that same kind of that same kind of mark, maybe a couple of pounds more. He came third in the county at 146, so he would just be one. No interest for tomorrow. I mean, he's 80 to 1. I think bigger in places, but he would just be a bit of an eye catcher, I think, with the Grand Annual in mind. And then that just leaves Riviere to Tell, the Elliott runner. Now, she gave Fernie Hollow a massive race at Christmas. I remember doing our Christmas podcast where I think I came down on the side of Riviere to Tell just because of the timing of the race, the experience she had, and just with Fernie Hollow showing a little bit of, definitely some inexperience on his first run, a few sketchy jumps. Obviously, Fernie Hollow overcame that, but Riviere to Tell did push him all the way. And having watched the race again today, I'd forgotten actually how well she did and how she kept him going all the way to the line. There was an assumption that she would need to go right-handed. She jumped slightly to her right. This, of course, is left-handed, but it's the same track and course as Christmas. Yeah, she gets plenty of allowances again. I know I think only £2 less this time, but you've not got the calibre of horse as Fernie Hollow. I think if Fernie Hollow was in this race, I know you've got to price up there's an element of hype that always goes into prices with these kind of horses, but he would be odds on here. Now, is Blue Lord up to Fernie Hollow's standard? I think Blue Lord is a great racehorse. I think he can slot in as right now as their number one Arkle Hope, but I think there's a big old gap between Blue Lord and Fernie Hollow, much like there was last season over hurdles, where you had him running brilliant races in second, but always being well held by a good horse. There might not be that level of horse in the Arkle this year, maybe not in this race, but I think considering how well Riviere to Tell did over Christmas, she was only, I think, a length and a bit behind Fernie Hollow. I think there's a little bit more than the bare form. I think Fernie Hollow had more and would have actually put more distance between the pair if they met again. But yeah, I think you have to probably take on Blue Lord with her. But I would just be interested in both the 5-year-olds, but Haute en Couleur is the one I'm most interested in. Riviere to Tell has the experience, so I'll be prepared to go against Blue Lord with her. But I do think Haute en Couleur, I think he's only had, is it 4 lifetime runs? Obviously came third in 2 Grade 1s as a 4-year-old last season. I think there's a good level of improvement there. It's an unknown, obviously, but you're talking about even St. Sam. St. Sam had, I think, 5 runs over hurdles last season, and he was a Boodles horse. You had Haute en Couleur, who obviously was chucked straight into the Triumph. Blue Lord had plenty of runs over hurdles. Whether Haute en Couleur can make that step up, it's an assumption, but he's more unexposed than the rest. So yeah, I'd have Riviere to Tell, probably the main play, but Haute en Couleur definitely would probably be the Mullins horse I'd be siding with. They'd be the 2 I'd take out of the race.
I'm very much along a similar sort of line. So certainly, maybe Saint Sam in terms of instead of Haute en Couleur. But I do think Riviere de Tell is the one I would go for here. I was very impressed by her performance against Fernie Hollow, and bearing in mind that he didn't jump the last fence in that race, which I think played to Fernie Hollow's strengths, given that it was been a champion bumper winner. I think she did really well to stay with him as long as she did. Jumped well throughout, has got the experience, and I'm surprised she's not favourite right now. I wouldn't be at all surprised if she became favourite in this, and she's the one I would go for here.
I think if there's 12 to 1 for her, and any race at Cheltenham with Will Hill, that's probably the price I would take rather than back her to win just tomorrow. I know obviously, well, most people will be sort of Cheltenham focused that are watching this, I suppose, so not really a tip. I wouldn't back her at the price she is tomorrow. I'd back her at 12 to 1 because I think if she wins this, she goes favourite. People will latch onto that Fernie Hollow run. I think she's a little bit. I think time might tell that it's not that good form. It wouldn't surprise me if Edwardstone's better than these. Really, I think he's improved more as a chaser. But obviously, he's not in the race tomorrow. I would absolutely love Houghton Colour to come out, and I'd love any of them to bolt up. To be fair, because then it's exciting. I think Houghton Colour was thrown in 2 juvenile grade 1s for Willie, placed in both. And then he's won easily enough on debut. He's one that I would get excited by. Saint Sam, I'd sort of I've had to go back and look at him and think, because I really didn't even think about him. And then I've gone back and he's sort of more better than I've given him credit for. And Blue Lord is just, like, I'm familiar with Blue Lord last year, but appreciate it was my Arkle winner from the I don't know, months before the Supreme, and I would never have. There wouldn't have been any other horse worth talking about, in my opinion. And I know Blue Lord's not up to that level, but I also appreciate it would beat Fernie Hollow. So for me, Revere de Tel, whoever wins this for me is there's no superstar. They're all just in with a shout, and I'm just not really that excited by it tomorrow, unless we get what I want is something to really, really step forward and be exciting. And to be honest, I don't think Revere de Tel is that. I think she's the most. Is she the most likely? Do I think she's the most likely winner? Probably. So I would take the 12 to 1 for her to win tomorrow and Cheltenham as the bet. But it wouldn't be anything more than a point, because I'm not that excited by it. I think the race it's a weak year. No matter what happens, it's a weak year. So,
yeah. I think she's, in my view, we probably found her ceiling. The others could well overtake it. Not sure. I think it's a decent ceiling, decent level. She's had the amount of runs, but yeah, I definitely think in 2 or 3 runs' time, there'll be plenty that have kind of overtaken her.
Yeah.
And like you say, I don't think we'll be talking about any of these with next year in mind. I know the bar is seemingly incredibly high with Shishkin and Ergamine. But yeah, I don't think these will have a dent in the champion chase next year, in all honesty.
Looking at the prices they are for tomorrow, so they're now, you can get 15 to 8 with Will Hill for Blue Lord, and you can get 2 to 1 best price Paddy Power. But in the specials, Blue Lord's 6 to 1 to win tomorrow, and then the festival, Revere de Tel's 12 to 1. So I think just as a sort of a value pick, that is the bet that I would put up for this.
I think you can get 14s actually with Paddy Power.
Okay, even better. Take that. All in. Perfect. So, are we ready for the next? Oh, Paul, who do you think it was? Revere de Tel, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So, easiest race of the week next then.
Yeah. So the challenge for me is to summarise this 24 runner handicap in less time than it's taken these guys to do 22 runners in the first 3 races. So I'll do my best to do that. I think one interesting angle here is with a view to Cheltenham and the Potemps, and horses who are qualified but may not get in of their current handicap mark. So as a point of reference, talking to Peter Fire this morning, he's got Born Patriot running at Sandown tomorrow, and he's rated 130 in Ireland, 135 in the UK, and I think that £5 differential is part of the course right now, and he thinks 2 or 3 pounds to be comfortably getting into the Potemps, having qualified the horse already at Cheltenham. So with that in mind, you're probably looking for a horse to be at the 131, 132 level in Ireland to get in. There's 6 or 7 horses in this race who could perhaps do that. There's a couple already in. You'd say Dallas Day Picton is qualified, Panda Boy is qualified. Not that they don't want to win €100,000 race anyway, but they're already qualified for the Pretemps. But horses like What's Not to Know is at 125. The Name Escapes Me 127. Those sorts of horses need to win this race to get in. Horses like A Great View, Futurum Regum. But the one I think I would be most interested in from that perspective would be Dunboyne, who's rated 128. I think if he runs a good race in this and finishes second or third, you might go up 2 or 3 pounds. You're not going to go up 5 or 6 pounds if you don't win. You need to win to go up that sort of number. So to get into Cheltenham, like I say, nice to win a €100,000 race on the way, but to get into Cheltenham, I think you're looking to win any of those horses to win. So if you think of it from the point of view, who's qualified, who wants to get to Cheltenham, who wants to make sure they get to Cheltenham, those are some perhaps to look at in this race. Putting aside horses already qualified for the Pretemps, just looking at this race in isolation, I think the price may have gone to some extent on Enjoy Delen, but he's the one I picked out a week or so ago. I just couldn't get the money on being in America. And I think the quickest way to the poorhouse is to say that horse is a better, was a poor hurdler, is rated 116 over hurdles, and is now rated 140 odd over fences, and therefore he goes back over hurdles and is going to be as good over hurdles as he is over fences. I think that's just a bad way to look at things. Some horses just get better for going over fences, but other horses just get better because for whatever reason. And I think Enjoy Delen is one of those horses. When he was over hurdles, he was mid-teens. When he first started over fences, he was the same quality horse, mid-teens fencer, chaser. When he changed stables, ironically from Peter Pye's yard to Dot Love's yard, that's when he started improving. And so maybe in his case, and I actually do believe this, I think he's just a better horse, full stop. And if that's the case, he's a better horse over fences, he's a better horse over hurdles. And so in his case, I do think you can take the view that he has got a really good weight to take advantage of in this race. His 25s, whatever, went pretty quickly yesterday when he was declared and got into the race. I think even 10 to 1 could look a good price this time tomorrow. The other one I'd be interested in at the other end of the handicap is Unexpected Death, who finished second in this race last year, who did a tour of Leopardstown and Blackrock on his last run at Christmas. He was 10 wide coming into the straight and then finished on the inside rail. Probably trying to get qualified, finishing 9th and so failing. Tommy Brett rode on that occasion. His normal pilot, Barry Brown's back on board tomorrow, and I could see him running a very big race tomorrow as well. So just trying to narrow it down to a few. Those are the ones I would have my eye on. So Dunboyne, Unexpected Death, and probably most of all of them, Enjoy Delen.
I like it.
Yeah, I like that. He was, Enjoy Delen was the one that caught my eye as well. Similar to you, I think you can get 11 to 1, 6 places. I think that's quite good, actually.
Have you guys backed him for the Grand National?
No, I know. Yeah, they've said the plan is the Ancient National.
The very shrewd Richard Norton's Coin 200. Very keen on Enjoy Delen for the Grand National. I would very much. Hey,
what price is he for the National? Do you know?
40 to 1.
Oh.
Very keen on him. Made a good case. It's on the forum. He had me sold.
I'll check that out. But yeah, I mean, I know he ran over hurdles in November, didn't he? And did come 7th, which maybe kind of could make you go, well, yeah, he's just not as good over hurdles. But that was only in a race worth 10,000 euros for the winner.
Yeah, in his first time out as well, he'd been up for 8 months before that.
Yeah, and he's obviously got bigger targets in his sight, but I don't think you're going to pass up a 60,000 euro win if he can. He's right in at the bottom, and like you say, Paul, he's just a much better horse now. 3rd in an Irish Grand National, 3rd in a Paddy Power Christmas. I'm not quite sure he's got the £33 in hand that the ratings would suggest. But I'm sure he's definitely got something up his sleeve. Whether that's enough to win or place, we don't know. But yeah, I think he's an eye catcher in the race, definitely.
Yeah, I think I do like Enjoy Dallin. Obviously, a horse I've liked him. The favourite has obviously got a massive chance, up £8 from course and distance win last time. I think you can get 7 places in there. It's, what is it, the field? 6-1 the field, 50 odds. So, I think Dunboyne is a horse that I think quite a few people are on for Cheltenham that Paul's already mentioned. Massive fan of him. I think I backed him yesterday out of panic for the fact that I'm on him for the per attempts. But Paul's a bit there about him sort of getting a few pounds not being bad for him to get in, sort of ease my mind. But I just thought if he'll be running to win tomorrow, looking at the connections for Gordon, and I wouldn't want to sort of pass up just because I'm sort of predominantly an anti-post punter. I think it'd be stupid to back a horse that I think can win at the festival and then not back him to win 100,000 at the Dublin Racing Festival. So he's one that I've backed. And the other one that I backed was Right Place, Right Time, who has actually crashed in price since he's £12 lower in Ireland than he is in the UK. So I think he'll do no harm now. But that was tipped up yesterday, and the price has gone now. But that's just 7 places. You're going to get your money. He's got to be there or thereabouts. So I do like him. I have backed him. The two I was sort of interested in a little bit were Maze Runner and Authorised Art for Willie, and Dark Voyager even as well, just because they all ran in that race, the per tense qualifier, and they were all rubbish, to be fair, and I'd backed all 3 of them. But I just think that, like, the way Willie will campaign his horses, that I think they're always trying. I expected them to sort of, I don't know, either win or I don't know. They didn't run well, but they're horses that were going off a lot shorter and are now better off at the weights, and I fancied them then. So especially Maze Runner, just he's going to pop up and win a big race, and I'm going to be furious if I'm not on. So I think I think he went off 8-1 last time. He's 22-1, 7 places, and Dark Voyager's 66-1. Brian Cooper, if he might have won the race before on Haltan Colour. He's got some nice rides for Willie this week in those colours. So I think 66-1, 7 places, and Maze Runner 22-1 are probably the 2 that I would consider. But I do the ones you've already mentioned, and Joy Delan and Dunboyne, I do really like, and I have backed Right Place, Right Time, and I wouldn't put anyone off that. So
just to add on to that, obviously Maze Runner won this race last year. So he's £9 higher now, but he won it well enough from unexpected death. So that's interesting. I think in terms of Dark Voice has just been so disappointing for me. I'm not sure about that horse. But then again, the Authorised Art, he was campaigned over 2 miles all the time. I think his last run was over 3 miles and he did nothing. But it's interesting, he went straight from 2 to 3 miles. So that's also interesting. The other one I was going to make a bit more of a mention of was What's Not to Know, who unseated just after the second last at Christmas when going pretty well, I felt. I don't quite know what happened. I watched it a dozen times and I still can't figure out how he fell off it. But he did. So that's just one to keep a note of, I think, tomorrow as well.
With Maze Runner, was it last year? Mullins said he was his best handicapped horse leading to the festival. That was after he won at Dublin. I'm sure he missed the festival, didn't he?
He did miss it, yeah.
I'm sure that was a thing where Mullins said. So yeah, if you take that at face value, his kind of rise from since he won last year probably isn't as excessive as it first looks, maybe.
Yeah, he's got Jack Foley on him, which is good value for £5. So.
Yeah.
I've just had a message through from Bet365 saying I'm about my deposit frequency. Just peppering bets during during the podcast. Come on, Maze Runner. Perfect. Right. So, what? Just summarise what our selections were in that race, then.
I'm probably go with Enjoy Delaine with a saver on Unexpected Growth.
Yeah, I'd go Enjoy Delaine and Maze Runner.
I think I'd be probably Dunboyne and Maze Runner, the two. Okay, bro. What's the next race? Who's up?
So that will be me, and it'll be the feature of the day, the Irish Gold Cup, where we've got a few different form lines coming back into play. Kenboy and Frodon are the two market leaders at the moment. Well, actually, Asterion Flonge is coming for some support. So, generally, it's actually a very close betting market. You've got kind of the first four: Kenboy, Asterion Flonge, Frodon, and Manila Indo, all around. Well, it's probably half a point separating threes up to 7-2, bit of 4-1. And firstly, Manila Indo, obviously he's got Robbie Power on for the first time. We've touched on this before, but I'm generally amazed at the reaction of him this season. I listened to a few things leading up to this weekend, and it's, can Manila Indo bounce back? Is he gone in the game? What's happened to him? What's going on? He's a shadow of himself. I honestly don't know what people are watching. It's part of the course, isn't it? I mean, I think there are enough doubts about the King George. Yes, you had two ways of looking at it, but on the whole, it was a track that there were plenty of doubters about. But I think there was nothing wrong with his seasonal debut. Everyone knew he'd probably come on for the run. And I think, to sum up very quickly on him, we just know year on year he improves massively for Cheltenham and then arguably the spring, because he's won well at Punchestown as a novice hurdler. If you take his novice hurdle season, he improved £18 from his last run to the Albert Bartlett. His novice chase improved £17 for his last run to the RSA, and the Gold Cup improved £16 from this race last year on to winning the Gold Cup itself. Last season, he did, to me, very similar, where he won a couple of kind of average races where he was fully expected to win. But his two races leading up to the Gold Cup, he fell at Leopardstown and he came fourth out of five runners. So yeah, I'm mystified, to be honest, about this kind of perception that he's gone. I wouldn't be backing him at all for tomorrow, not because I don't trust him and I think he's a shadow of himself, but just it's not the time to catch him. But yeah, to me, he will fully bounce back in the spring. So I've no doubt about that. And actually, I think he's pushed out, was it 9 or 10-1 after the King George? I don't expect him to win. And actually, based on the kind of the vibes that everyone seems to have about him, it wouldn't surprise me if he gets pushed out into kind of even the mid-teens, kind of 13, 14, 15-1. And I'll probably go back in again, in all honesty. I've got enough. I'm happy with my position for him for the Gold Cup. But yeah, I would fully kind of jump on another push out, because I think it's fully unjustified, really. But yeah, he's fine for kind of joint favouritism. I couldn't have him, but it's in no means doubting his ability for targets later on in the season. A few below him, Delta Work, I can't really have him now. he's got bits of form, but you're going back a couple of years now. He hasn't really done anything since, when actually there's kind of some quite good cases made for him. If you go back further than that, absolutely he's got a chance. But to me, essentially, his jumping will always let him down. He was running an okay race at Christmas, and again made a bad mistake that just put paid to any of his chances. He's not on my mind for this race or anything going forward. Janadil, I don't really know what he's doing here other than a kind of run just to get him out, to be honest. I think it's always been questionable how much he truly stays, kind of 3 miles plus after his Albert Bartlett run.
Is it just the Ryanair he's been left in?
Yeah, that's the thing. So he's not got a Gold Cup entry. He came 5th over Christmas, quarter distance. To me, there were no excuses. There was nothing in the race that would make me think, A, he was unlucky, or B, that he would improve today. And actually, he was backed in quite heavily. There's a lot of support, and he went off joint second favourite, 7-1. So yeah, the fact he's not got a Gold Cup entry, he's only in the Ryanair, I don't think you could be very bullish about his chances. He never looked to stay it to me.
Have you seen just looking at the market tomorrow? He's been cut everywhere. Will Hill have pushed him out to 12s, and Paddy Power have gone shortest 13-2. So you can almost get almost double the price, which is hardly ever happens on a day of race market, does it? That's a really interesting move. Tempted to take the 12s just while I'm here, but no, I agree with you. Sorry to interrupt, mate, but I just thought that was interesting. No. I wonder what price it'll be. That's quite a move, quite a cut.
It is.
And then, Conflated and Silius Emery. Again, I might brush over them undeservedly, but they're not for me. So it kind of comes down to the 3 at the head of the market, unsurprisingly. Ken Boy, absolute kind of runs his race at Leopardstown. It's probably his track. It's the course he's got the best form at. His ratings are rock solid there. The Christmas pod made a case for him for being a great each way bet. And I would say he's a great bet here. He's 10 years old, like Frodon, but last season followed a very similar path, actually. Placed over Christmas, just pipped, which is similar to how Christmas ran for him this year. And then he went on to win this race. I could very much see that being the case again. I think if you were to take the 2 that beat him over Christmas, Galvin and Aplutar, if you put either of those in the race tomorrow, kind of wonder what price they would be. I think 3-1, actually, given his Leopardstown record, if you wanted to be really kind of scumbag each way, or put him in some doubles, multiples, I can't see him out of the first 3. I think he's got rock solid chances for the win, but yeah, that each way is nailed on for me. And yeah, you could look at him being 10 years old, but I would say this is, for the season, it all boils down to tomorrow now. If they could get the win, they'd be absolutely delighted. Season done. Whatever he does now is an absolute bonus. I'd be surprised if he's got credentials to win another race really from this point on in the season, bar a clever bit of placing. So yeah, I think it's all about tomorrow for him. They'll do the tried and tested Leopardstown. This race, he won it last year. massive claims. Frodon was, I think, at one point his favourite actually for the race. Similar, obviously 10 years old. He won a Down Royal early on in the season where he was absolutely primed for the day. Not quite sure that's going to be the case this time. Obviously, Nichols doesn't send one over for the fun of it. He's actually got a very good record. Obviously, Frodon a Down Royale, Clanders Oboe last April. You'd have to worry about Paul Nichols's current form. I know he's always kind of got the flu jabs at this time, and January's a quieter month, but he really is in a kind of bad run of form at the moment. We kind of say it every time with Frodon that if he gets to dictate, if Bryony Frost can dictate from the front, that's when he's dangerous. And if that's not allowed, his chances generally go by the wayside. Now, every year it seems like you kind of say, well, that's not going to happen. The jockeys aren't going to let that happen. And then he'll still pop up and win a Ryanair, he'll win a King George, he'll win a Down Royal. But I do think you'd imagine Kenboy would be up at the pace. And I think they'd be wary of letting Bryony Frost have a free go out in front. And I do think if you were to take the beating of Galvin, that obviously looks incredibly good. Obviously, Galvin backed up over Christmas. So if you took that form at face value, you have to probably make Frodon favourite. But I do think there's an element that the season starting, I think there's no doubt Galvin, they weren't sure where they were with him connections. They kind of threw him into a grade one, see what they could get out of it, and that would kind of dictate the season. And I think he was probably ridden that way that day. Slight doubts about just whether he was up to that standard. Jamie Codd had the ride, fantastic race. But I think if you would have a match bet between Frodon and Galvin now, I think Galvin would probably come out on top most times, because I think they know what they've got now, like a Christmas. Obviously, Davy Russell would probably ride again, and I think Galvin would have the better of Frodon each time. So I think just using that literal beating of Galvin, who then beat quite a few of these over Christmas, is a little bit loose. But yeah, I've doubted Frodon time after time, and he always kind of comes back at me. So you don't know, and then you've got the enigma that is Asterion Phalange. Where do you start, really? What I would say is, if you can get any kind of Fuller insurance, which is basically what I say every time he runs, I'm pretty sure generally someone offers it. I think Coral are quite good with it. He's 4-1 now. If I could get half that price with Fuller insurance, I would take that. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but if you take away his 2 falls this season, and I know that's what we have to judge him on, but his form is good. He was travelling best when unseated 3 out in the John Durkin, and fell at the last in the King George when he was booked for second. Now, at worst, that's 2 seconds to his name. He's kicked on from last season, and he's going into this race shorter. The flip side is obviously, he's fell again and again, and this is just another on the kind of long list of crazy things that he's done. I think the issue with him is trust. It's not ability. If he can put it all together, I think he can win this race. Much has been made out of kind of left and right-handed. He's actually, I don't think he's fallen left-handed. All his falls have been right-handed, or certainly I think 4 of his falls or unseats have been right-handed. I do think there's an element that, to me, they ride him a bit safer when he goes out left-handed. I think when they're going right-handed, which was the assumption that was kind of to best effect, they kind of let him loose. Whereas if you take kind of Cheltenham in the Marsh, you had Leopardstown last season where he came fourth in the race won by Monkfish. I think they were quite safe jumping rounds with him, and they had it in their mind just to get round, try and teach him. And I think if Brian Cooper can just kind of merge those two together, I think he could probably win this. But yeah, I wouldn't touch him without some kind of full insurance, but it's just not worth it with him. I'll take definitely half the price with that kind of insurance.
You can get 3-1 Fowler insurance with Sky, and best price is 4-1.
Yeah, so I would take that 3-1 every day of the week. So I would take 3-1 Asterion Flange Fowler insurance, and I think 3-1 with Kenboy is rock solid. So if you've got any each way fancies throughout the weekend, I would chuck him into it as well. Maybe a few, because I can't see him out of the first three, and he has massive win credentials. So for me, it comes down to the two Mullins horses that are ahead of the market. How about you guys?
I mean, Ken Boy always runs his race there, as you say, and I would love to see him sort of win one more time, but I actually think he may be caught out tomorrow. I keep coming back to Asterion Flange. I have to say, I do think he's talented. I do think almost now too much is made of the jumping right-handed. He did, no doubt about it. And people think back to the Supreme when he knocked a couple of horses over, you know. And he did when he first started over fences, but last time at Leopardstown even, he wasn't jumping so badly to his right. And I think it's less of an issue now. I think the horse is talented, and I'm prepared to take a chance with him on that basis. Yeah, I mean, Manello Indo, you know, certainly would come good in the spring. He has done in the last 2 years, 3 years, you might argue. And but I'm not quite sure that Leopardstown is his track. We'll see better tomorrow. But for me, I stay around Flange.
Yeah, I think so. Kenboy won it last year, and Delta Work and Manella Indo were put away easily. I can't really see why that wouldn't be the case this year. It's not like either of them are doing anything any different this year, or that would see them do better this year. But it was the Storyteller that was second last year by only 2 lengths. And then when I look at this race, I think, well, do I think Frodon is a better horse than the Storyteller? Then yeah, I do. And do I think Asterion Flange is a better horse than the Storyteller? Yeah, I do now, or relative to when they were. So I've just backed Asterion Flange now, but 3-1 with the Fowler insurance. I think Kenboy's got a fabulous chance, but I think Asterion Flange is the one with the potential. He's sort of a horse on the up. I can see why Kenboy and Paul Tannen's on him. That makes a load of sense. But you got to remember, Brian Cooper's just going to have won the Irish Archelon, Houghton Calais, and then picked up the massive pot on Dark Voyager at 66-1. So he's going to be on the crest of a wave, and Asterion Flange is going to go off even money and absolutely bolt in. I think I sort of slightly disagree. Like Johnny, you said you don't think Frodon will be as primed for this. I think this is absolutely. I don't think he'd be coming over unless he was going to be as good as he can be. I mean, but me and you have got some previous on getting Frodon wrong, haven't we? So at least if we go opposite on this, then one of us has got to be right. But I can't back Frodon because I just don't like the horse at all. I keep getting him wrong. I can't work him out. So I mean, that's not a genuine reason that I'm not backing him. I think if he drifted out to 5-1, I mean, he's 4-1 now. He's each way. I mean, Frodon's going to be there, isn't he? He's going to be there. A bit of a scumbag, but the thing is, I don't really think he's better than Kenboy. I think Kenboy and at Leopardstown, Kenboy's better than Frodon, and I'm just gonna, or I have just chanced Astarian Florence because I think he's the one with the massive upside. And I agree with everything you'd said before about. Paul's had enough. Disagrees.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Astarian Florence is the one that has got the sort of most upside about him. So yeah, I go for that.
Yeah, if you're going to take a horse out of the race, I mean, yeah, you're talking about 2 10-year-olds alongside him, aren't you? So really, Janadil doesn't look like he's going to kick on. Maybe he's got Ryanair chances. He probably has, but yeah, the steering Florence. If he can actually jump, he's the one going forward. That
I do think. I mean, basically going to be useless by the time this goes out. But if he's 12-1 and if he's 12-1 with Will Hill and 13-2 with Paddy Power, then there's a trading angle there that I'll probably take myself. Like that's just wrong, isn't it? He's not going to go if he's 13-2 with Paddy Power. He's not going to be going off with an SP of bigger than 12-1, is he? I wouldn't have thought. But again, not much use for the if that's not the case by the time this is out. So what do you think of it? Like for me, that I'm not that excited about this race tomorrow. I think it's the best race, not the race I'm most excited about. Is that wrong?
No, I think that's fair. It's not the most exciting.
Yeah, it never seems to. I mean, if you look, we've had some good renewals of it, but and obviously memorable in their ways. But Ed Wolf, Bells Hill, Delta Work, Carlingford Lock a couple of times. Yeah, it's not always been the biggest point, has it? Certainly, if we're on a Cheltenham focus, I know we're not solely on that today, but
absolutely. And obviously, best of luck to Archie with Kenboy. Up the forum.
Yeah, and the only thing I would say is, I don't think Kenboy is necessarily a Cheltenham horse. Manello Window most certainly is. You can certainly argue Astarian Florence has probably got hopes of going there. Frodon's not entered, so tomorrow's Frodon's Cheltenham. So
I agree. Okay, perfect. What are we on to next? Must be some sort of handicap, Paul.
A very disappointing handicap, I have to say. I mean, 9 runners for this is, last year it was 20 runners, very disappointing. Won last year by Wave of the Sea, similar weight, or similar rating, should I say, this year. It could be a very interesting race. I think Grange Walk obviously beat Exit Pole at Christmas, and then ran at Fairy House, which basically kicked every fence out of the way till he fell, and would have to jump a whole lot better than that in this race tomorrow. You certainly could see Mount Leinster and Bazio go off, and I think that could be probably the most important point about this race. I do see this being run at a fairly furious gallop, despite the 9 runners, and I see a couple of them who are probably better suited to longer distances. Wave of the Sea being one, and the other one, to my mind at least, being Reveling Pleasure, sort of sitting there picking up the pieces towards the end, and it is a stiff finish for Leopardstown. So I could see them ready to sort of pick off. Mount Leinster to me is potentially a sitting duck. I know he's favourite, and I know he's in many ways the class horse of the race, but he always seems to find 1 or 2 to beat him, and I think tomorrow could be the same again. So Capucci Mix, I find very frustrating horse. I'm actually very surprised Darrow keeps riding him. I'm not sure he gets on that well with him. I'm not sure that Rachel Blackmore does as well. I think, to me, if you're going to put Robbie Parr on any horse tomorrow, I'd have put him on Capucci Mix, where he's had more success alongside Jordan Gainsford as anybody. So I'm surprised he's not riding him. I don't fancy the horse particularly. Showtime. I can't believe he's only 9 years old. I would have thought Showtime would be 15 years by now. It seems to be around forever, and I've not really paid much attention to Stansfield, to be quite honest. So for me, I see quick pace. But a couple picking it up at the end, and of those two, I'd probably go with Reveling Pleasure, both in terms of the weight on ground. I see softening. It's a horse who ran over 2 mile 5 at the holidays, back over 2 mile 1. He probably needs somewhere in between, in all honesty, but I think the way it's going to play out tomorrow will suit him. And I also, in all honesty, like his jockey. I think Mark Madonna is great value for £7 claim. And that's what sways it for me compared to Wave at Sea.
Fair enough. I mean, Mount Leinster's obvious for this, but for me, because this race doesn't look, Mount Leinster's not been a horse I don't like or haven't liked for a long, long time. Just sort of always felt he was overhyped just because they were trying to sell him. And Wave of the Sea, he's £9 higher than when he won last year, but the race was just a lot deeper last year. They had Simon Torrens on last year claiming 5. They've got a new claimer on this year for him, claiming 5 again. And I think Shane Fitzgerald, is it? I think I just, with there being only 9 runners, I think at the price he is 8 to 1, or you can get 7 to 1 4 places. I mean, there was 9 runners, sorry, but I think I'd probably back, or I will back him each way tomorrow, and just think, I mean, he's the one that sets the standard, and the others have got to go up there. I wouldn't be surprised if Mount Leinster beats him, but I'd rather back a Wave of the Sea each way than Mount Leinster. But not a massively strong opinion on this race, to be perfectly honest. I don't know about you, Jono.
I was pretty shocked at the. I didn't even know it was a hand when you first looked at the list. I thought it was a graded race, not a handicap. Wave of the Sea, because he won it last year, and I agree, it was a better race last year. I'd be dead against Mount Leinster. I know he obviously came third against Holt on Couleur in his last run. Has done okay over fences 3 times, but I mean he's had 20 races over rules. He's won 5, but 3 of those were on flat races. He's won a bumper and a hurdle. I think he's massively overrated. So yeah, I'd be against him. I think Grange Walk is quite interesting. He beats Exit Pole, who is the second favourite. There's slight weight difference, although Grange Walk has got £5 taken off, I think, tomorrow. Quinlan takes off 5, and I think that would actually give him a bigger weight pull against Exit Pole than when he beat him last time, and Grange Walk's saddle slipped on that last run. I think I'd probably chance him, but it's not a race I've got a massive opinion on, to be honest.
The only other thing I would say in support of Reveling Pleasure is he finished second in this race 3 years ago behind Quamino of 127. And I wouldn't normally be advocating for a 10-year-old 3 years later, but like I say, with the jockey and the £6 lower in a much weaker race, in my view, must have a chance.
Sorry, I was putting it down. Right, so that takes us to the bumper. I think we lumbered you with the bumpers, didn't we, Jono? You
did. Although I'll take... So a very, very quick side note, we dished out who would be looking at all the races. And I think, Paul, you volunteered for the handicaps, which I was straight away, yes.
Yeah, you didn't take much persuasion on that one, did it, John?
Just very quickly, is what kind of races do you prefer? Do you prefer looking at the handicaps?
I do. I mean, in America, my frustration is I can't take any prices. So, and I can't have an account in England because I have I don't have a bank account in England, and it gets very awkward. So, and I'm not able to put a bet on. So I have to rely on like tote prices or pari-mutuel prices. So it sort of forces me down the handicap route in a sense, because I'm always looking for exactas or trifectas or something like that. So I do tend to look at the bigger field races, and I have my bookies run in the UK or put on the shorter priced graded race bets for me. So.
Nice. We've got a handicap expert on to hand then. I like it. So yeah, bumpers. I'll be honest, bumpers I'm not usually a big fan of, although in the last few years the generally changed, where you can just kind of back the hype horse early on in the season and there you go. Yeah, I mean, this race, it's a hot race, as it always is. Last year renewals have been really, really strong. I think this same again. You got some very good bumper horses here. Obviously headed by Facile Vega, the kind of big talking horse of Willie Mullins. Flagged up early on for kind of taking your eye out, I think he said on the gallops. Yeah, to me, he's the one I'm most excited about, and it's probably kind of a vague sweeping statement, but I just the whole season it's just seeming like Mullins has just got the better hand over Elliott with his bumper horses. Obviously, Mullins won all 4 bumpers over Christmas. Seabank Bistro won last weekend. He beat San Tonito, who was second in another 2 races to a couple of Willie Mullins horses. He had Mercury. He won at Gowran recently, beating a couple of Elliott runners. I was looking back at some of Elliott's bumper winners, and it's hard to kind of find when they've come up against a Willie Mullins horse, really. Same with It's What Unites Us, won very well on debut. There wasn't a Willie Mullins horse in the race, and actually I know he doesn't run tomorrow, but American Mike, he's looked great. Obviously Elliott has been massively talking up his chances. The vibes are good about him. In all his races yet, he hasn't ran into a Willie Mullins horse. Absolutely, it doesn't mean that he's not. I don't think you can doubt American Mike isn't a very good bumper horse on what we've seen. And It's What Unites Us hasn't had a chance. And these horses haven't had chances to go up against Willie Mullins horses. But it just seems this season so far, he just knocks back Elliott every bumper runner. He gets the better of him. And considering Facile Vega is kind of probably the biggest talking horse out of the yard this season, I know there's been a few varying kind of reports of the kind of pecking order, but I don't think there's any doubt that Facile Vega is up there as one of his best. Embassy Gardens was also well talked up, won over Christmas. So yeah, I'm absolutely no bumper expert at all. I will follow the hype. So I can't take any credit in really going into bumper races and rating the form too highly. But just on kind of what the season has thrown up, I would back a Willie Mullins horse over a Gordon Elliott one, definitely. And considering Facile Vega is arguably the number 1 at this stage, I think he's probably going to take all the beating. Sander Clegane, he would probably be the one I'd be most interested in if I was taking on the fave. The Big Doyen has a £2 penalty. So you might be able to tell us a bit more about him, Paul, with Peter Fahy. He looked very good as well. So there's a lot of potential in this race. And it's also maybe it doesn't really mean anything, but the winner of this race last couple of years hasn't always gone on to win the Cheltenham Bumper. Whoever wins this will probably, I would say, outdo American Mike as favourite, unless it's a messy race. But yeah, I know Elliot's kind of talked up this evening his horse quite well. I think Jamie Codd said a few good words, but I'd be against the Elliot runner. I think Embassy Gardens is a big price actually for a horse that seemingly was kind of in that bracket of Christmas bumper winners. And we know that kind of second string bumper horses for Willie Mullins sometimes pay. But yeah, Facile Vega would be the one I'm most excited about. Sander Clegane I've liked. And also the Big Dorian. But I was actually waiting for your thoughts on him, Paul.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was at the yard this morning, and no, he looks well. I mean, he looks very well, and tomorrow's the day really in terms of is he a Cheltenham prospect or not? It's interesting, isn't it? When he won at Punchestown, he was made 7 or 8 to 1, I think, for the Cheltenham Bumper. And here we are talking about this race, and he's 11 to 1 best price for this race right now. It's funny how anti-post market works, of course, but. He looks well. I wouldn't read anything into the fact that Derek O'Connor's riding tomorrow. Pete's got a lot of respect for Derek. Would always try and get him, Jamie Codd or Patrick Mullins. Barry O'Neill's ridden in the last couple of times when he's won, but Barry O'Neill's on Sander Clegane tomorrow. But like I said, I wouldn't read too much into that in terms of preferences. I do think Facile Vega, if you look at Big Doyen beat Cool Survivor, Big Doyen did by 15 lengths. Facile Vega won just as easily, if not easier, by twice the distance. So even on that bare evidence, you'd be leaning towards Facile Vega, who is difficult to oppose, I think, in this. What I do think is interesting in terms of potential each way play, I know it's only 7 runners, but I do think it's got every chance of finishing second, is at 33 to 1 is Corn Funnock, who finished third in a really good bumper last year at Punchestown, won by Adamantly Chosen, who hasn't gone on to do that much, but the second in that race, Fringwell Bay, went to O'Neill, I think, John Joe O'Neill, and came out and trotted up and got injured. Subsequently, 4 or 5 more have won out of that bumper. Corn Funnock won himself. I think he went over to the UK to win his bumper. I would not be at all surprised. Dacopo Gloria also ran in that and finished quite a way behind Corn Funnock. To me, that may be the play if you could get a good each way bet on Corn Funnock, just as an interest. But I think Facile Vega will take a lot of beater.
Yeah, I've not got a lot to add, to be honest. Like, I missed the Facile Vega. I just think people have. She's shorter than he. God, I do that every time. It's impossible not to, isn't it? Absolutely impossible.
I do it as well.
Yeah, it's hard. He was good. I'm surprised they had good things to say about Embassy Gardens, and he's 25 to 1 for tomorrow. 28 to 1. That's a massive price, I thought. But then they just don't. They don't really get it wrong, do they? Like this, I know at Cheltenham maybe you can back the outsiders, but you'd be really, really surprised if Embassy Gardens is anywhere near Facile Vega, given the prices they are. That's just skewing my thoughts, and I think I agree with you. I think American Mike is going to have to be phenomenal to win the champion bumper, because Willie seems to have the absolute game. Well, the division by the balls. So he'll need to be phenomenal. I haven't got an angle into the race tomorrow. I don't think you can back. I wouldn't be backing a bumper horse at odds on ever, and I wouldn't. Now it's 7 runners. There's no each way bet in it. It's what unites us: Sandor Clegane, the Big Doyen, Embassy Gardens, Corn Funnock, are all horses that I don't dislike. Like they're all on the tracker that's I'll be interested in them. But there's no bet tomorrow for me unless there's Embassy Gardens maybe if you can still get the each way extra and he's a massive price. What is he? Let's have a look. 11-1. Yeah. I not really. Not interested. Move on. End the day. Hour and a half.
The only thing I would say, Kev, is we just go back to the big doyen. Peter did say he'd be very disappointed if he wasn't placed in the first three, and I would love it to win for the Money for Jam syndicate. Just a group of 10 guys who are very local to the stables. It'd be great to see those guys win. They turned down a lot of money for him after he won at Punches Down, so you'd like to see that be repaid.
Good on him.
Do you think they'll go to Cheltenham? You said it'll kind of tell them where they're at. Do you think they'll go if he places?
I think they're more likely to go. I think if he bombs out tomorrow, I don't think they'll go, or Peter will persuade them not to go. But I think if he runs well tomorrow, but I think he'd have to run well tomorrow. I think they want to go. Who wouldn't want to go? And I think they're hopeful. I'd love to see it win, but tomorrow's the day when they'll know which direction to go in, I think.
Okay, bro. So should we have we'll end this one here and then we'll have to load up again, go again. Bedtime. But yeah, that's have you got a best bet of the day?
Tomorrow. Good question.
Remember what I tipped?
What did I back during the day? Grand embittered for the Grand Annual is the best bet of the day.
I was just about you. I'll take reveling pleasure. Just for right value.
I think Asterion Flange, Forward Insurance are just a point less than what he is in the general market. That's a good price.
Fair enough. And I think the best bet for me would be Rivière de Tel and Any Race at 12-1, just because of the discrepancy with Blue Lord. Now she's been backed into almost joint favourite. That would be my bet of the day tomorrow. Which won't pay out tomorrow.
By saying my bet of the day as well is 14-1 for the same bet.
Hey, to be fair, mate, if we're totting up at the end of this Cheltenham season, if we tot up whose tips have done the best, I reckon I'll be doing pretty well, to be fair. You with your Fernie Hollow and your My Drogo tips and all sorts of nonsense.
Don't put me on My Drogo. That was poor.
It was poor, wasn't it?
I'm sure your Ginto Alba Bartlett bet will be good when he's in the Ballymore.
My legion of fans will be pleased either way. They'll be on. They're reading the diary. all one of them. Right, let's end this one, guys, and let's have a little break. See you later.